Is the Daily Wire turning the page to a new chapter? The media outlet just made a big move by signing content creator Isabel Brown to their network. And her contract is what's making people, including myself, think there's a big shakeup happening at not only the Daily Wire, but possibly the entire conservative media industry. Welcome back to my channel. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below if you like what you hear. Typically, I wouldn't even bother making an entire video about the Daily Wire signing new talent. However, I think this contract is a direct response to the insane backlash that the company got following the exit of their talent Candace Owens and Brett Cooper. If you're unfamiliar with Candace or Brett's exit from the Daily Wire, they're both very different. Candace was seemingly canned from her role for her alleged anti-Israel positions, whereas Brett Cooper willingly exited at the end of her 3-year contract, but in a manner that made people confused, to say the least, because she claimed everything was amicable, but we all know it wasn't. I'll link a video I did on the Brett Cooper exit in the description if you're interested in more on that topic. In both situations, the Daily Wire had the rights to the YouTube channels and some social media accounts linked to both Candace and Brett. So when they exited, they had to start brand new YouTube channels. And you can believe that is morally right, that is morally wrong. Either way, that is the contract that both Candace and Brett signed and agreed to. And I believe the Daily Wire has similar contracts in place for all of their talent. Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and even the new host of the Daily Wire show, The Comment Section, Reagan Conrad. But today we're looking at a completely different contract. In fact, I have never seen anything like this in the history of conservative media. Before I go any further, I do have to disclose to you that I used to work for the Daily Wire. As many of you know, I was originally cast as the host of the comment section before Brett came in and did a wonderful job with that show. So just letting you know, because I can only say limited things about the company. So for legal reasons, I'll leave the opining on the Daily Wire as a company to you all. I am merely discussing a hot topic in the news, which is well within my rights. And while we're on the topic of disclosing things, I'd also like to disclose that I am good friends with Isabel Brown and her husband, the topic of today's video. They're a wonderful couple with a wonderful daughter, and I quite literally have zero ill words against them as human beings. My goal here today is merely to cover the Daily Wire's acquisition of the Isabel Brown show and its implications on the field that I work in. So if you've gotten this far and you're like, okay, who is Isabel Brown? Outside of being a wonderful person, she's a YouTuber and a content creator. She went on Ben Shapiro's show the day she announced her show with the Daily Wire, and this is how she describes herself and her background.
I've been in content creation since graduating, actually on the pre-med track with degrees in biomedical sciences in 2019 and 2020, and found my life thrust in a totally different direction. Instead of going through the medical school route, still wanting to do that pursuit of objective truth that I fell in love with in pursuing science and academia, but as we all discovered very quickly during the COVID pandemic, really isn't a virtue of science in the Western world that we live in today. That led me into the world of activism and the online conversations and the culture war that we've all been battling for the last several years, but in particular honing in on my generation with Gen Z coming into adulthood, wanting to build a new American dream for ourselves and rebel against the cultural lies of the left.
Notably, Isabel is one of the few conservative stars who got her name in short form content creation before getting into long form content like YouTube. What I mean by short form is any video under 3 minutes, and traditionally it's posted on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. That's short form. Whereas long form is something more like this, where you're talking for 8+ minutes in a longer format like YouTube, Rumble, etc. But Isabel has grown a massive audience specifically in the short formats. So she has 1.1 million followers on Instagram and a little over 570,000 followers on TikTok. Then I believe she's got a little over 100,000 on YouTube. What you have to understand is that traditionally in a media space like the Daily Wire, Fox News, or The Blaze, the companies are more interested in building a long-form audience because there is bigger revenue streams generated through long-form content. So traditionally, creators like Isabel who come from short form, I wouldn't say there's a shame or a stigma. It's just that it's harder to gain a following in long form than in short form. What I'm saying is it's much easier to be big in long form and then quickly grow short form. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe short form is kind of looked down upon. Because from a business perspective, people who can keep a long form audience are looked upon more favorably than someone with a short form audience because the revenue is higher. But this contract completely flips that narrative on its head. From my understanding of this contract, it is the first of its kind deal that allows the creator to withhold the autonomy of the structure of the show, hold their own name and likeness, continue to own and operate their own YouTube channel, and walk away at any given moment. For reference, let's compare this to the contract that Brett Cooper had and Reagan Conrad likely has right now. So the comment section is the show that was created before any talent entered the building. So the show had a structure created by the Daily Wire, and talent was worked into that structure. Not in Isabel's case. She gets to create what her show looks like. It's merely temporarily distributed by the Daily Wire. When and if Isabel opts to part ways with the Daily Wire, they do not own her name. They do not own her show name. They do not own her YouTube channel. None of it. When she chooses to walk away, she walks away with everything that she created. The only thing she will lose is likely the paycheck, I'm assuming she's getting paid for this, and of course the established audience of the Daily Wire. Another interesting fact is that she is operating out of her at-home studio, which I know from experience other shows are mandatory in office 5 days a week. Being at home and having a home studio, by the way, is genius. It's the way of the future. Hello, I'm doing it myself right here. But unfortunately, seldom do companies care or take notice of that. They like the collaborative environment that you get when you go in office. I think there's benefits to both sides, but when you're talking about a working mother or working soon-to-be mothers, this is the way to do it. And by this, I mean in-home studio, if you haven't caught that already. But getting your own show at a massive network in your home studio, that is literally unheard of. The only case I've seen similar-ish is Amala Ekapanobi, who created a YouTube channel with PragerU. And I have been told that she actually took a smaller paycheck while at PragerU with the understanding that she would own her channel when the contract was up. But again, I think that differs because Amala started with a little following and grew a big following while at PragerU. Isabel already has a large social media following that she's now attempting to translate to a long-form show, which already exists as the Isabelle Brown Show on her YouTube right now, and it is pretty successful. Now it's just going to be more successful. I just really can't emphasize how unprecedented this is. Isabel did an interview with an online publication called The Conservator, and the author noted how this contract specifically looks different than anything out there. One more aspect of political multimedia needed ironing out: the way conservative media companies contract talent. New platforms have allowed what were once the opinions of an editorial board to individualize, no longer owned by a Times or Tribune, but rather a collection of charismatic commentators. Cable and print conglomerates have seen top talent go solo and often an exodus of the audience they amassed. The Daily Wire figured out how to compete and evolve. To retain industry mavericks, they rewrote the script on structuring talent acquisitions. Isabel then says, "I've never seen a contract opportunity like this in the conservative media space." This is the way forward for all media. Retaining talent who have already created something that people are already interested in and then giving that a bigger audience. That is what the conservative media world needs. What was happening in the past is that these companies would pluck someone who had a small but growing-ish following and then pluck them from obscurity and turn that nobody into a somebody. And something about that whole process always felt really creepy to me. Like these companies are taking advantage of these young kids and making them work for low wages to get views that some man in a C-suite is going to capitalize on. Or woman, whatever. It just feels kinda icky. And that's not a comment on the Daily Wire. That is all media. This is how it's always been done. But for whatever reason, in the last 6 months, pretty much since Trump got elected, we've seen similar success with Megyn Kelly's media company as well, MK Media. She provided her platform to 3 successful social media commentators and journalists, and now all of their shows are top rated on the podcast charts. Now, again, I want to point out that these shows are still different in contracting from the contract Isabel signed. I think Isabel's is seriously a 1 in a million contract, but the point still stands. The goal in the future is to take existing talent and make them bigger. That is the way to move forward. Another point that Isabel made in her interview with the Conservator that I don't want us to miss is that she noted there's a change in leadership that helped expedite her through these contract negotiations. She said that the Daily Wire's recent shift in leadership and company culture is what brought her over, saying, quote, "They were looking to change things up a bit. How they interacted with talent and new voices needed a fresh perspective in order to determine what the company or future of the company would look like." And I think the fair question to come from that is whether the Daily Wire's previous CEO, Jeremy Boring, was maybe behind those contracts that Brett and Candace seemingly hated so much. Now, this could very well be a coincidence, and Isabel's not talking about Jeremy, but from the sources I know within the Daily Wire, I don't know if it's a coincidence. I'm not going to opine on that subject, but you guys are free to debate what you think caused this shakeup in the comments. And let me know your thoughts on all this contract drama and whether you think this is the way forward for the media. Be sure to like and subscribe on your way out, and I'll see you guys here next time. Bye, friends. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.